All right, President Trump's former campaign chairman heads to trial today.
Wendy Patrick joining us now for today's Inside the Law. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so today's the day or jury selection. This is special counsel Robert Mueller's really the first target. This is the biggest thing he's done so far. What does this mean, today's jury selection for Paul Manafort?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a big deal because as you say, Raul and Chris, this is something that is finally a culmination of, what have we seen, a year and a half of investigation. This was the very first person that Robert Mueller charged, along with Rick Gate, who already pled guilty, of course. And this is going to be a test to see the strength of that prosecution. This is the sole holdout, Paul Manafort, who has not pled guilty. Remember, there's been 32 either indictments or convictions, but 5 of those were the Americans. The rest of them, of course, are in Russia. And then there's Paul Manafort, the sole holdout. So what does jury selection mean? It means that there's going to be a big challenge facing these prosecutors to get men and women that can be alert and interested enough to listen to 500 pieces of evidence and 35 witnesses being presented. That is an enormous amount of information to distill and analyze and deliberate on to reach a verdict. It's a huge task.
And they have two shots at him because there's 2 trials supposedly, right? So so if they don't get him here, then get him in the other one, or what's the deal?
Well, I'm sure that's not their strategy, but you're right. As a practical matter, that's exactly right. So this trial is beginning today. He's also facing different charges in D.C. in September. So that is true. However, remember, Manafort has also decided not to cooperate for whatever reason. Now, what about this? Does he have anything useful to say that Mueller would be interested in? We don't talk enough about that. In order to take a deal or to offer to cooperate, you have to have something useful to the prosecutor's team.
Okay, so obviously you have the biggest challenge, I feel like, choosing a jury.
That's right.
But then what do you expect? What do you expect to happen in this trial?
What I expect to have happen is the judge do everything he can to keep these jurors awake and alert, because sifting through 500 pieces of evidence, largely a paper trail, is going to be very difficult. But that's what the prosecutors are going to have to put together to convict Paul Manafort. Now, Manafort on his end has maintained his innocence. I don't expect he's going to testify, but it's going to be a very challenging case. But remember, Mueller's team has been working on this for over a year, so I would imagine it's going to be airtight.
So he's the one guy who hasn't pleaded guilty or anything like that. But then people want to know, what does this have to do with the Russian meddling in the 2016 elections exactly? And what, if anything, does this have to do with President Trump?
Well, the answer
because it all seems to be getting jumbled up in this one giant thing. But it's not, right?
That's right. What does it have to do with Russian meddling? Nothing, even according to the prosecutors. What does it have to do with President Trump is a more complicated question, because remember, he worked briefly, a couple of months, as his campaign manager, but there's been nothing thus far. And the government has said they don't intend on even using the word Russia in this trial. So is the president guilty by association? That doesn't seem to be the case with the charges either this trial or in the trial in September. This appears to be about money and Manafort, not about the president.
Wow.
Well, you cleared it up.
But he could face major prison time. I mean, this is a big prison time that he's looking at right here. Do you think he's going to kind of switch it up and say, you know what, maybe I'll cut a deal. Well, maybe something will happen.
That's the question, and here's what's interesting.
Because when you're facing life in prison, potentially, you suddenly...
But what if you have nothing to offer that is of value to the prosecution? I'm sure many people that are facing huge prison terms would love to cut deals, but if there's nothing they can offer in return, they wouldn't. Remember that Mueller already gave immunity to 5 witnesses that are testifying against Manafort. So they're not adverse to doing that, but there's no indication yet that Manafort's going to be the 6th witness that maybe he's going to testify against the president, get immunity.
How long is this trial going to go for?
They say about a month, Raul.
A month?
So we can check in again next week and see how we're doing. Update the estimate.
I got to feel for that jury. It's all financial and money stuff and all that evidence.
That's right. They got to stay awake.
Wendy Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have you back, and then we'll figure out what's going on.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, still ahead.